Hey guys, welcome back. Got some new parts in the mail yesterday, so we'll get started with that in just a second. But first off, wanted to show you, got some new lights in here because the GoPro has problems. This is a GoPro Hero 3 and it has problems with lighting, so I put 75s up here that had 60s and I added this LED. I'm also going to put another one over there and then move that light. But hopefully that helps with our videos. So the project today is putting a new floor in the bottom of the trunk. This is the bracket to hold the straps for the fuel tank. And then we have a new fuel tank and a sending unit. Now, I'm using an electric pump on this, and what I was initially going to do is weld a sump onto the bottom of the tank. That way fuel came out of the back of the tank and went to the electric fuel pump, so the fuel pump didn't have to work to get the fuel. But when I was searching for my sending unit, I found that they make this 1/2-inch sending unit. So I'll show you this. So here's the 1/2-inch sending unit, and as you can see, that thing's going to flow a lot of fuel. So I think we're going to be okay with this. So I'm going to try this first. If it doesn't work, if the fuel pump doesn't work properly with it, then we'll move on to taking the fuel tank back out and putting a sump in it. But I think we're going to be pretty good with this guy. So this is why I'm having to replace the trunk pan. As you can see, it's fully rotted out, and the piece that holds the fuel tank in is about to collapse. So we don't need the fuel tank falling out of this thing. And I think what I'm going to do, probably this line right here, this curve, probably just cut all the way around there, drop in my new piece, and if I need to take any more material I will. If not, start welding it in and then measure this piece up, get it centered, and then weld that in, and then we can put our fuel tank in. Go ahead and just drop this pan in here and see what it's going to look like. A little piece of soapstone, just see where it's falling right now. It's not where I'm going to cut it though. Alright, I went ahead and freehand a soapstone line around the entire floor here, and I'm going to use the 4.5-inch grinder. I looked underneath. There's nothing that I'm going to hit underneath the car. Everything's clear under there, with the exception of back in this corner. There's a panel back there, but if you're low enough, then you don't have to worry about cutting into it. So go ahead and cut this piece out and test fit the new piece. Pretty good. Definitely need to clean it up, but let's do a test fit. Fits really nice. Let's go underneath and see what we have here. Need to push it down more here. Clean this up. Needs to go back down a little bit on this side. Might just take a little bit more out. Went ahead and took a little more material and got some clean surface for welding. Do another test fit. I have it fitting the way I like, so I'm going to go ahead and get the oil off that's been put on it by the factory to keep it from rusting. Go ahead and spray it down with some Simple Green and a water hose, and then put it back in. Let's go ahead and start welding it up. Just out of curiosity, I threw me a board in there and did some measurements, and I'm like 5 7/8 on both sides, so looks like I have this thing sitting nice and level, so I'm going to start tacking it in. Okay, got this thing welded in. We used a piece of aluminum underneath the pan here to fill those holes up because it won't weld to aluminum. So you can just put that aluminum under there, weld, fill up your crack, and it'll just pop right off. So I didn't solid weld this. I don't think that's necessary. What I did is I just went from side to side and then just filled in just like hit the middle all the way around until I got this done. So I'm gonna do a little finish up work underneath, make it look nicer. And as you can see, just use a chain for my ground because I've painted everything else that I've ground down. So just use that for a ground, worked fine. Clean up the bottom, and then we have to get the spare tire. No. What is that thing?
The fuel tank mount.
Yeah.
Straps.
Yeah. We got to get the fuel tank strap mount. Figure out where we want it, and cut some holes, drop that through, and then weld that in, and then fit our gas tank up in there. Moving right along, trying to figure out where to put our gas tank hanger here, or the bracket. So just doing some measurements. Looks like it needs to, it's not actually centered. It's going to line up with this, and then we need to center it, I believe, center it between these two here. So get that set up, cut a couple of slots in, that way it'll drop through and we can weld it in.
Gentle persuasion.
You're not straight, but we get that. We get that.
Work on that.
Yep. We have our bracket sitting down in here. We're just going to go ahead and test fit the tank, see how it goes in, and the straps are already down there, so see how it fits. Seems legit. Seems to have gone in there pretty nicely. Yeah, yours needs to come down some. Give it a tug, boy. There it is. Looks all nice and fresh, doesn't it?
That's good.
That's daggone good.
It's really good.
Gonna go ahead, we drop the tank back down, and just gonna pop this out. Gonna drill 4 holes on each side and then tack it from the bottom. That way this thing's tacked in, and have him put some weight on it so it's held down to the floor there. So let's go ahead and do that.
Alright, so Alex drilled holes right there, either side, and then got the paint knocked off of this. So when we set it in there, it'll lay down in there, spot weld it up from the bottom, nice and secure. Here we go.
Here's a quick shot of my tack welds. 2 there, 2 there, and then 2 on the other sides. Now, as you can see, we cut this a little too much, so we're going to fill that in just like we did these, put the aluminum piece on the back, and then fill it in with the weld. Here's the piece of aluminum I was talking about. You can see how the weld didn't stick to it, maybe a little bit, but we just put that on the back side, have David put it on the underside there, and I'll weld it from the top. Of course, I'm going to clean that up first though, get the paint off of there. This thing's looking really good up here. I'm really happy with this. I'm about to seam seal it. The underside looks pretty good. The finish is not as pretty as I wish it was, but I think this looks really good, and whenever I get done seam sealing it, spray a little paint, I think it's going to look really nice. Just some standard gray seam sealer, auto body stuff. Got it at Advanced Auto Parts. Now that needs to dry for at least 30 minutes before putting any paint on it. I'm going to go ahead and take care of the bottom side real quick. Okay, so while the top and bottom's drying here, just wanted to show you something with the gas tank real quick. We did test fit it and it fits fine, but there is an issue with the new sending unit. So when we go to put it in, this it goes in this way and it hits the bottom of the tank right here. So if you can see, there's a rib in the tank and it hits that rib right there, and it's just it's like this. It's on the bottom of the tank, so it hits that. So my thoughts are, it doesn't go real far to the back of the tank, so I'm thinking bend it up a little bit to where it clears the rib in the tank, and then take this off and extend it out into another sock. That way it gets to the very back of the tank, so we're sure to have good fuel to the motor when we launch, and it's low tank of gas. We don't want to have a full tank of gas if we go racing. So we're going to try to make this thing extend all the way to the back. And I was looking at the Holley Hydromat, but stuff's kind of expensive. There's some other options I think that we're going to try, so we'll see. We're not going to put the tank in today. We're going to go ahead and paint this as soon as it dries. That way you can see the finished product, and that'll be it for today. I'm going to start out with some self-etching primer. Next, I'm just going to throw a little bit of black on it. I'm only going to paint this area because all this still needs to be cleaned, rust-free before we do anything else. Probably put some kind of thicker liner than just paint whenever I finish it. So I'm just going to put a little coat on this just to keep it from rusting. Okay guys, I'll show you what the end result looks like here. I think it turned out really well. Show you the bottom side. Now, like I said, this little lip here doesn't look as good as I would like, but it'll do. That's just a thin layer of paint there. Same thing under here. Once I get everything cleaned, all the rust gone, then I'll go back under it with undercoat. And that way it all looks fresh. Right now it's still kind of a hot mess, but we'll get there. Well guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for today. I'm going to go ahead and probably clean that trunk out. Get ready for some CRC rust converter. That way I can get that part done. Order a filler neck for the fuel tank because that one was completely rusted. Got to get that replaced. I don't want the fuel washing rust down into the new gas tank and all the new fuel systems. So definitely get that done. We have a few new parts over here also. Alternator, distributor. There's some stuff inside I'm not going to tell you about yet. But car's coming along. The plan is to get it done by December 31st. So we'll see how it goes. Hope you guys enjoyed this. See you next time. So I got started cleaning back here. As you can see, I got everything out. There's a hole right there needs to be fixed. Minor problem. This side over here, started cleaning out in the crevice and a little something there. This side, bunch of pecans, and I found this wrench, which is really interesting. Go ahead and clean that thing up and look at the name on it, see where it came from and see how old it is. I think that's pretty cool. Then there's a shotgun shell way back here in the corner. Oh well.